So basically, kung unsa i-prepare ninyo for the finals, mauna siya ang inyong dapat makatunan kani-kani. Okay? Now, I think some of you may be familiar with what agenda is all about, specifically for those who are active members of Sangguniang Kabataan. Because for all I know, when you join the Sangguniang Kabataan, you have series of meetings, seminars, may activities, and of course, if you will have your activities, you always have the planning meeting. So, kabalo jud mo unsa ng agenda. So, to simplify what agenda is a list of something to discuss. Agenda is plural of the word agendum. So, take note agendum is singular, plural ang agenda. Now, why do we need to make an agenda or to formulate an agenda? Because it's a list. The one that who's going to use this list could have a control over how each item in the list will be taken up. Dili magkasamo. So, kung sa meeting ni siya gamiton, ang agenda mooy controlling factor sa presider sa meeting para dili magkaguliyang ang meeting. Okay? So, atong i-simplify. Kung sa classroom pa na siya, ang agenda mo na siya ang lesson plan sa teacher. Notice that if a teacher does not have a guide, a lesson plan, mailhan na nimo kay mag-discuss ang teacher, labay-labay ang topic niya. Kaya bang topic 1 diri, labay sa topic 3, palhin sa topic 1, labay sa topic 4, ana ba? Dili gani siya hapsay, dili siya progressive, dili siya continuous. Okay? Now, aside from the presider having control of what is to be discussed, the agenda, ano wala mong po video, okay. The agenda also is used as a form of courtesy. What do we mean by this, ma'am? Those who are attending the meeting will have to observe courtesy by not speaking when they are not asked, by not butting in, kana bang dili mo sapaw, because they have an agenda, a list of what is to be discussed, and they need to follow that list. Then they need to achieve each of the items in the list. And at the same time, the one who is handling the meeting, the presider, could actually have a well-discussed agendum in the meeting that everyone could actually speak whether they agree or disagree about the topic. So, tanan matagaan ng opportunity to speak up. Muna siya ang kanindot kung naay agenda. No? Okay. So, kung walay agenda, kung sa classroom pa, naay topic ang teacher, naman dyan yung estudyante nga bugal-bugalo, no? Sudlan niyag joke. Ang teacher mo sakay. Sumpay ang uban nga estudyante, naay mahimo. At the end of the session, naay ma-achieve kung nga na ang dating sa klase. Tell me.
Wala, ma'am.
Wala. So, ang mahitabuan na mas daghan ang storya kesa sa content sa lesson. In the same manner, if you have attended a meeting, kung unahon ang other matters, mas daghang oras ang other matters kesa sa real agenda of the meeting, which is discouraged. So dapat ang katong other matters, pinakalas gid na siya pag-discuss. Unahon ang naa sa listahan. Okay? Para mas hapsay. Very organized. Now, what are the features of an agenda? Number one, they are logically arranged. So I know that you have seen the video, but I don't know if you were very keen at how they presented their presiding a meeting. They actually started with calling for those who are present. True or false? Nagsugod ba sila pag attendance check?
True, ma'am.
Yeah. Then sunod nila, nag-prayer time. Although ang prayer time, optional ha. Optional na. Nagsunod sila prayer time. Then after the prayer time, gi-present na dayo ng agenda. So what is the purpose of it being presented? For all the attendees of the meeting to know the flow of the meeting. Dili na mag-expect, unsay sunod isulti ni boss, unsay sunod isulti ni kapitan. Ano ba? They knew already what would be the first to be discussed, what comes next, and what comes last. Because the agenda is a logical organization of items for discussion. So, imposible ang number 10 mag-number 1. When you say number 1 jud na. Then, cascade na siya hantod maabot og number 10. Okay? Number 2. It also makes the presentation very harmonious. Kabantay kang walay sapaw-sapaw og storya. Everybody is given the opportunity to speak. So, there was proper turn-taking. Kana bang dili magsapaw og storya? Buwato na ko sa mahuman, i-acknowledge sa presider, tawag na sa glain. So, ingana siya ka hanay. Okay? And of course, it also refrain and restrain. Ang agenda, refrain and restrain participants or attendees who sometimes are diverting topics, deviating ideas. And normally, if you are the presider, you can also be very courteous in informing the person who is deviant or diverting of the topic. Pwede ni mo ingnon, excuse me, chief mate 1, you are out of order. O, pwede na ni mo sultian na. Or sultian ni mo, excuse me, chief mate 1, we are still in agendum 1. Wait until we reach agendum 3 because that idea you're talking about is relevant to agendum number 3. So, ingana lang, very professional, very kind and courteous with the dealings with other participants or attendees in the meeting. Okay. How do you set an agenda? So, saan ko na nato paghimog agenda? By the way, ang agenda part na sa memo ha. So, number 1, think about logistics. And when we talk about logistics, we're talking about 3 resources. 1, resource of time. 2, resource of people. And 3, resource of material or material resources. So when we speak about time resources, the captain, as the presider of most of the meetings, would somehow think about, kanus pwede mag-gather ta ng crew? Next month, nagdagan man day ang barko, so pwede ta in automation. And the rest of the officers of the crew would have their officers meeting. Kaya in automation man. Kung sa ganit pasabot sa automation, pwede mabiyaan or naka-supervise lang ang mga crew. Dili kinahanglan iman. Yes. Kasagaran bayaron kay in fully automated ng barko, no? Yes. Kinsa man tong ni-raise og hand, wa ko kaapas kinsa to.
Napindutan rin, ma'am.
Okay. But you're aware that vessels now are in full automation, yes or no? Hello? In full automation karon ng mga barko, yes or no? Kasagaran ng full automation kaya ang kanang mga international ships. So sa open sea, in full automation na sila. Doon na gani sila sa channel, they have to man the helm. So kinahanglan na energy magman sa helm. Why? The traffic in the channel may not be handled if it is fully automated. Anyway, so that's deviation ni ma'am. So let's go to logistics. So ang logistics ha, time resource, people resource. So when you say people resource, who are the people that needs to be invited? So if you are going to have a meeting about settling, establishing resolution about your incident or your accident report, think about who were involved. So if the accident actually happened in the deck and then it involved some few deck officers, do you have to call also the engine to join your meeting? Kamugib tanan sa crew ang mag-meeting? Or ang priority lang ani ang mga nasa deck kay nahitabo to sa deck, and then pwede ang results sa meeting i-share na lang siya through a memo for the engine people to also know what happened, right?
Ang mga officer na
Okay, ang mga officers na na-involved dili kinahanglan tanan, ha? Okay, so number 2
may
is
mo disseminate information.
yeah, ma-disseminate. Pwede. Number 2 is objective. So when you think of holding a meeting, ask yourself if you are the supposed to be presider. So ask yourself, why would I ask for a meeting? For what purpose am I going to hold? Of course, your purpose now to hold a meeting is to resolve the incident that happened or to resolve the accident that happened based on your investigative report, right? So muna imong basic na purpose. So muna imong number 2. Number 3, do housekeeping. Plan your housekeeping. What do we mean by this? The housekeeping dili ang panglimpyo, ha? Ang housekeeping is pag-assign nimo og mga tao. So like what happened in the video that I've shown you, kabantay mo kada ranggo, kada tao na ay ranggo na sila'y idea to share kay gipang-assign na sila. But part of the housekeeping is also the flow of the meeting. So starting from the calling out of the participants, checking of attendance, and then followed by the prayer, followed by the presentation of the agenda, and then individual checking of an individual discussion of the agenda na dayon or agendum. So with that, nindot kaayo ang flow sa imong meeting. Muna gitawag siya nga housekeeping. Plus the fact that if you think nga na ay mga problema nga participants, pwede na nimo na siya mahuna-hunahan ay mutingog na gani ning guluyagon nga AD, ako na ni siyang ingnon. Ensure that what you would like to say are all relevant to agendum number blank or number blank or number blank. So depende. Para mabarana nimo siya dayon, dili siya magpadayon sa iyang gibati masigigyaw-yaw, walay unod. Okay, naman siya ingana kung mag-meeting. And of course, you have number 4. So when we speak of number 4, which are items, these are the meat of the agenda. These are what are supposed to be discussed. So the items have to be arranged in the degree of importance. So asa pinaka-importante unahon natong discuss, ba? So in your case, sa incident accident report, of course, the first thing that you should discuss would be a little history, a little background of what happened. Dili kay diretso na ka sa resolution. Una-una niya yung mga attendees nga, anong nag-resolution naman ni siya, kung saan di problema. So wala na identify ang problem. So it should start with a little background. What's the problem? And then when the problem happened, was there an initial action taken by the crew? So discuss. Kaning initial action taken by the crew, sakto ba, kulang ba, assess it, evaluate it, how effective the initial action was. And then, from there, move on na ka. Unsay mga impact, unsay mga causes. And then you can also move to resolutions or mga solusyon. Pwede, you can discuss about, you can agree on, in order for the same incident na dili na mahitabo in the future. And take note, any other business or the AOB, sa ato kay other matters man na siya, never ever put it as first priority in your meeting. Because, I don't know if you have noticed this one when you attended a meeting, unahon gani ang other matters, hurot ang oras sa other matters, dili na ma-discuss ang pinaka-importante na angay i-discuss. Okay? And of course, closure. So when you close your when you close your agenda, I mean, when you close the flow of your meeting, always think about recapitulating. Baliko ni mo itong mga importante nga gipang agree or gipang discuss. And which would actually lead you to the making of the minutes of the meeting. So the minutes of the meeting is a record of proceedings. What proceedings, ma'am? Proceedings is the meeting. Unsa ganito ang meeting about? Ang meeting is about incident or accident, tagaan og resolution or tagaan og solusyon para dili na siya mausap, ma-avoid na siya in the future. Okay? Now, who basically takes down the minutes? So depende na siya sa kapitan kinsay gusto niya himuon nga secretary niya. Oftentimes, the secretary is the one that records everything that has been discussed in the meeting, and then he finalizes everything and he archives. So when you say he archives, mag-keep siya copy for future reference. So what are the steps in making the minutes of the meeting? So foremost, we have pre-planning, record taking, writing, sharing, and filing or storage of the minutes. Okay? So when we speak of pre-planning, ani ka busy ang presider o ang secretary, sila na ang magunahuna, magplano na sila. In 2 days' time, the vessel would be in transit to Panama Canal. It will take about 1 month for the transit. So we could have time to hold our meetings. So, nag-planning na sila, right? So in the planning, they will talk about who are invited, when and where the meeting will be, what will be discussed in the meeting, and also set expectations. And always have in mind, what if? Uy, Captain, naaman ni atong buluyagon nga able-bodied seaman. Remember sa kapungpung nga lubi, na may lubing buang. Sakto ba si ma'am sa Bisaya niya?
Sakto jud mo, ma'am.
Diba? So kaning lubing nga buang mo ni siya magsamok-samok. Nga imbis nga maplastar man ay ang meeting mubat-in siya, mu-insist siya sa iyang gusto if i-insist. So ikaw nga presider kay nakay control sa meeting, kabalo na ka unsay strategy imong buhaton. Call his attention and tell him, I'm sorry, you are out of order. I mentioned that one a while ago, right? So, just like in the classroom, ang teacher muna nag-discuss, kalit lang nga na inibatin. Pero, although related ang iyang gibatin, pero it was in the form of a joke. Agoy, ni sakay man ang teacher, sumpay, hantod wala na ma-achieve sa meeting. So, muna siya, ang expectation should also be met. Okay? Next, record taking. So, humana ang pag-pre-plan. Nakahimo na siya og memo. Padana ang memo sa mga participants sa meeting. So, mag-meeting na. So, during the meeting, naanay tig-record, naanay minutes taker. So, kasagaran secretary ni siya. So, how does the minutes taker do the recording? So, he does 1 to 10. First, inote niya ang date, ang time sa meeting. Pila ka book nag-attend, dun sa mga pangalan, muna check of attendance na, no? And then, appeal sa mga absent, i-note sa siya. And of course, if nag-meeting ka for incident number 2, ensure that ang incident number 1, nasulbad na. So if wala pa nasulbad ang incident number 1, pangitaan to ninyong paagi nga ang mga resolutions ato accepted na. That's why naraay acceptance of or amendments made to previous meeting minutes of the meeting. So if wala to na agree kato siya nga minutes of the meeting, pwede during your time, the first chunk, the first part of your meeting, mo inyong i-discuss. So moving to approve, to accept the previous minutes of the meeting. So, mag-vote na dayon mo. Continue na dayon mo sa inyong agenda sa present or current meeting. So, with the present agenda, tagsa-tagsaon sa nag-discuss, dili na siya pwede usahon. I will show you the template later on. Okay, ang template would show you the flow. Okay, so dili siya dapat usahon tagsa-tagsa. Let's go to addendum number 1. So addendum number 1 is about blah, 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 blah. But before mo adto sa discussion of every addendum, inyo sa nang i-vote kung okay ba ang participants sa tanang agenda nga gisuwat. Naa ba sila dili ganahan i-appeal? Naa ba sila gusto i-appeal? Gusto ba nila to i-retain kato siya nga list? So kung i-retain to nila nga list, everybody must agree. So mag-vote na sad sila. Okay? So it's like in the order of a meeting. So you have the motions to accept, motions to reject, and finally, if humanatanan, pwede na po mo mag-set kung gano sa ang next na meeting. So that would be number 10. Okay? So kung naay mga follow-up. Now this time, meeting proper recording. So normally, a good secretary could simply have a bullet. So mag-bullet lang na siya. And then na siya yung mga notations dire kinsay ni approve, kinsay ni disapprove, unsay mga ginalisan, tanan jud na siya i-take down or i-record. Because that is when the writing and transcribing of the minutes would be done. So in the writing and transcribing of the minutes, katong gibulet nimo, imo na to siyang in the form of a paragraph buhaton. Do it in the form of a paragraph. So mag-in-English na kadiring dapita, mag-paragraph composition na kadiring dapita. And then, after that, so padung na end ang meeting, kaning inyong presider can borrow the copy of the secretary and read back kung say mga na-discuss for purpose of checking na walay nalimtan or walay na skip, walay na dugang. So eksakto lang jud according sa na meeting. And so after that, i-finalize na siya sa secretary, i-send na siya sa tanang nangaten, so participants of the meeting. And finally, you should keep a copy of it. Mo na mag-archiving na siya. Pwede electronic copy sa G Drive or pwede siya hard copy. Okay? So this is how your minutes of the meeting would look like. So yung ang template. Gidasok lang ni Mama pero actually nag-yuk na sila. You have the time, the date, the time, the location. We have the meeting presider or the facilitator. Then you have the type of meeting, unsay purpose nga nung nag-meeting. The minutes taker, which is who is Anna James, the timekeeper, who is Steve Hart. And see, ang tanang attendees, ibutang yun na diha ang pangalan. Then, kada agendum, one by one siya i-discuss. That's why, mo ni ang iyang format, magbalik-balik ra na siya diha. And then finally, at the end, na-adjud na pirma ang minutes taker presented by Anna James or minutes taken by Anna James. Ma'am, kinahanglan ba po mong pirma ang presider? Yes, kay the signature of the presider would actually acknowledge nga tanang gisulti niya na jot down sa secretary, tanang nag-jot down sa secretary according sa iyang gisulti. Ihana for verification. With that, I'm done with my discussion. Any question? Hello? I'm done. If you don't have any question, let's call it a day. I'll send this PowerPoint presentation in the GC. And I'll try to check kung pwede ba makapit katong video sa GC. Okay? Are we good? God bless, gentlemen and ladies. Have a great day. Hilong man kaayo. Uy, nabaka ako estudyante.
Bye-bye,
O
ma'am.
nagsigil ako yaw-yaw ako estudyante.
Na, ma'am.
Ma'am.
Aw lagi. Question. Wala na question?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yup.
Asa di makita ang corrected resume o cover letter?
Okay. The corrected resume and no, not the corrected. Kay, ang inyong resume, wala to na kung gitagsa-tagsa o butangan ng comments. So, nag-imo po general nga comments, please back-read sa ato ang GC because the comments, the general comments about the application and the resume is there. I don't know kung unsa to nga month na ko gipada. I think that was after midterm. Paki-check daw. After midterm. You tell me if wala dito kay akong isend namon ko'y file copy. The back read sa ka. Okay? So kato inyong bantayan. So sa akong mga comments, uy, ningon man si ma'am nga, ang date dapat ingani. So, i-check imong resume. I-check imong application letter. Uy, sayop giday ko. Date, ako ni Osbon. Sunod na po. The name of the company should be the company of the vessel involved in the investigation report you submitted during the prelim. Balik na sa inside address, ay sayop giday ko, ako ni Elisa. You get the point? You get the point?
Yes, ma'am.
Kana inyong buhaton niya. Tagsa-tagsaan nag-check according sa akong comments, katong general comments ni ma'am, general observation. Tagsa-tagsaan check ang imong resume o application letter. Then, inig-send nimo, put it in one file folder with the following: application, resume, resignation. Magkuyog na silang tulo. Then, ang file name nimo, imong apelyido. Example, Riquir Mateo. A-L, R-E-S, resume. A-L, application letter. R-L, resignation letter. Para inig-open ni ma'am, imuha jud na tanan diha. Now, kana nga file, ihatag na siya sa leader. Ang leader, ibutang na sa dako sa folder para inig-open ato nga folder, automatic tanang members tuwa na dito. Do you get it?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
So,
ma'am.
ang leader, ani, ang mo collect tanan ha, walay deadline for as long as ma-meet, walay deadline kung gano'n sa nimo pwede na isud. Mag-open ako og Dropbox for those project para if then dili na ko siya i-close na. Hallelujah, dili na mag-close si ma'am. Kay para kung naamoy mga correction, usbo nimo, abalik lang gihapon mo. Okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, sige. Any question? Wala?
Ma'am, katong sa week 3 task 2, ma'am. Individual to, ma'am.
Week
Week 3 task 2.
Memo?
Yes, ma'am, sa semifinal.
Dili. By 4 lagi ta. Dili ta mag-do individually. By 4.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
Oo.
Okay,
By
ma'am.
4 kaya to. Ang nasa LMS, individual. I-correct mo ito na ako. Okay. Any questions so far? If none, let's call it a day. Enjoy the rest of the day. Bye,
Bye, ma'am. Bye, ma'am. God bless. Bye, ma'am.